We'll just do it the old school way.
I like
I'll clip it off the end at some point.
Editing is awesome.
That's it. So, Jason Sisneros.
Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
It's the most boring part, but
We like boring. We like boring. We can always edit that out too. We can do all sorts of tricks.
Yeah.
We'll clip it down and make you sound like a white supremacist, and then I can get a job with CNN, right?
Yeah. Well, you have enough people that, it doesn't matter if you're opposed to, anything that the Democrats are doing, you're automatically a racist. So I'm used to it.
Yeah, that's natural. That's how it goes. I think we've all been labeled at some point, to the point they even talked about this event,
right,
and what it was going to be. And I heard there was going to be some sort of protest, but that didn't happen.
Every place that Clay Clark goes, I've spoken now at 4 or 5 of them, and everywhere you go, there's somebody trying to cause trouble. But my story is pretty short. I made some money in business, and then got real passionate about domestic violence, and then that sort of took me down a weird path to where I was exposed to the child trafficking world.
Yeah.
And so I work with an organization called CERT Ministries, and we do undercover rescues of children that have been abducted and are being sold in the sex trade.
Who is perpetrating that?
Is
it this major organized thing like some people suggest? What's your opinion?
It's the fastest growing crime in the world, certainly in America. And the problem is that there's very little penalties for them. The crime has outpaced regulations, right? And the appetite, which is weird to me, which is why I go around and do all the stuff that I do, because we have to bring the awareness up to people to say, hey, this is going on, and then have them put pressure or run for office themselves to be able to address it. And like Leo Benassi in Arizona, they passed, I think it was HB 2889, and it really increased the trafficking penalties. And that's what we need to do around the country. You have to understand, if it's the fastest growing crime, that means that the risk reward for the people that are perpetrating it and making those sales, children just become a commodity, right? Yeah. And so you have to put a penalty in there, and it has to be harsh. And so that's what I do. I go around and try to get people to step up and do the right thing. And we put ourselves in harm's way all the time. I raise money. I do all kinds of stuff in that work.
Yeah. What is the thing that most Americans don't realize about it?
That it's happening probably in their neighborhood. That's the thing that they don't understand. You got the last figure was 800,000 kids go missing every year. A large portion of those are trafficked. Yes, somebody will always comment online, well, a lot of those are family members abducting their kid from a divorce situation.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say that it's 500,000 that are family members, right? That still leaves 300,000 kids that are disappearing and being sold, right? It's an epidemic. And if we can't take care of our veterans, our elderly, and our children, that speaks to us as a culture, which is, again, why I love coming to these things and getting around people like yourself that are about the foundational values that built America, right? The Constitution, and holding true to that, and holding people responsible and doing the responsible things and risking, stepping out and speaking power to or truth to power.
Sure.
Right? That's what we have to do. Yeah. So I just suggest that everybody do what they can where they are. It's the biggest question I get. Yeah. In the trafficking world is, what can I do?
Yeah.
Kitchen sink. You know what I mean? Throw the kitchen sink at whatever it is that you happen to be able to have access to. If you're a teacher, if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you've got money, if you've got no money, give time. Getting involved and saying enough is enough is really the whole goal,
the key to the whole thing.
That's
when these kids are trafficked, where are they going?
It's, again, there's I wish there was a pattern, but there's no pattern. It's you've got somebody in Utah that was a deacon or whatever it was of his own church, and a upstanding business guy that's selling girls out of a hotel. They just caught him a couple months ago. You have the gangs, that are doing it in inner cities. You have it's so widespread because people are looking at it as a commodity, a way to make money that's not being punished, or there's not focus on it because they're too busy trying to track down really dangerous people like you.
Right. Well, which is absurd, but
It's
that is
absurd.
the reality.
Yeah.
And do you think, how much involvement do you think goes on? We hear conspiracy theories on this all the time. I know that I spent time in Armenia a little bit.
Okay.
And saw a lot of it right there up close in person.
Yeah.
And that was kind of how I ended up being a more serious journalist, incidentally. But they're moving somewhere, and what I've seen is that it's actually tied in with drugs a lot of times, where
All
you've
the
got
time.
the same people. And do you think that that's really what it is, where the drugs aren't as lucrative at this point, and so they kind of move out of that, or they're exchanging for that?
Yeah.
What are the kind of numbers that are associated with this stuff?
It used to be that drug dealers wouldn't deal in children. It was sort of when we were doing rescues 8 years ago, even a lot of the drug dealers would help point us to the pedophiles. And now it's just become, all right, everybody's dealing drugs. They're so easy to get. They're coming from China. They're coming across our border. They're coming from everywhere. So now, okay, let's move to children because that's another profit center for us. But it's happening again. It's happening. You've got preachers and judges and police officers, and not widespread. But you really have to get rid of the culture that's accepting it first, and then it starts to diminish. And then you have to, I'm not on the side of Pastor Rudy, who's the guy that runs our organization, really wants to work on the perpetrators, because he feels like when you can take one of them off the street or change their heart, then there's a multitude of things that happen downstream that these kids don't get taken. I think he's right. I'm just not there. I want them to go to jail. I want them to be punished. I want there to be some examples made in society so that this stops happening. But there's no real one place that you can point to, except for a culture that's allowing criminality, not just allowing it. I was thinking about this the other day. The left and a large portion of this country are celebrating criminality. They're celebrating it. There's multiple examples of that going on. In traditional America, we want to punish our criminals and lift up our successes. And what's going on right now is you have a whole bunch of people that are glorifying criminality and diminishing and hammering people that are successful, right? Yeah. And so it's a culture shift, and that's kind of where I'm at. I just look at myself as a culture warrior. I'm going to speak and do whatever I got to do.
Well, and I think that's really where we're at. Everybody I've talked to, back in 2020, I spoke with a woman who escaped the Cultural Revolution in China. And I always think about her, where she talks about using your voice to speak up in this. But now we're entering into this time where I think the Department of Justice is going after people for things they say.
Right.
And so, even the stuff that you talk about has become to a point taboo. It gets pushed under the rug. They don't want to talk about it. And that leads us to January 6th.
Yeah.
And I did want to get your take on that because you were there.
Yeah.
And what did you see that day?
My experience, so it was a last minute decision for my fiance and I. We prayed about it, and we said, okay, if there's flights and if there's a hotel, we'll go. And sure enough, there was. And so we went, and the crowd and the people and the different groups, blacks for Trump and gays for Trump and Chinese for Trump, and just everybody was mixing and happy and obviously upset for what we believe is the greatest perpetration against us, we the people as a whole, including Democrats. Is that our vote was stolen, and we were there to make our voices heard in a peaceful way against a backdrop of billions and billions of dollars, BLM and Antifa and all these other kind of things. There was hundreds and hundreds of Trump rallies with nothing burned down, with no, with no injuries, with no attacks, with none of that, nothing robbed. And so when we came to Washington, D.C., we expected that it was going to be that environment. And it was for the greater portion of it. It wasn't, I don't know what happened that set everything off at the Capitol. I don't know. I didn't go in. I was yelling at people not to go in. I was trying to stop people from breaking in the windows. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I saw that wasn't right. But the reason that we were there was righteous, you know? And nobody, in all of the BLM Antifa riots, here's a couple of things that stood out to me. Not one single unarmed protester was shot, right? You have a former military person that gets shot unarmed, completely unarmed, and killed. Nobody else died. All these rumors about all these things were going on. Yep. So my take on it was that it went a little far, and I think that little bit of far was a setup. You know, I saw them open the doors and wave people in.
Now, when you're talking about that, because you were over on the east side, and I know Matthew Martin, that's been an interesting case and all of it, because so far he's, you know, the only one that's been acquitted of all 4 charges that he faced.
Right.
He went into the building. He was able to find video where a police officer waved him in. So you're also saying you saw a lot of that on the east side over there?
Yeah, I was outside and I'm watching them going in, and I'm yelling at people, don't go in. Like, that was... Because now you start to look down the hallway and you see that it's lined with cameras.
Yeah.
And you start to go, oh, that is a setup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have Trump requesting 10,000 troops or however many it was to come in, and the 2 people that make the decision are Schumer and Pelosi.
Yeah.
And they say, no, we're not going to bring them in. So the whole entire thing could have been stopped had they done that. And had they properly protected
to
the
me,
building.
it's always been if they had put National Guard around the building,
right,
nothing would have been able to, you know, it wouldn't have happened.
No.
It just simply wouldn't have happened.
Right.
I mean, even to the point where I walked up to the building and it had already gone to hell.
Right.
And I'm looking at it and I'm going, you know, what do we got here exactly?
Right.
And you know, you come to find out that's exactly what it was.
Right.
So it's interesting you saw that. What time did you get at the building?
I don't know. I have lost all the timeline now because I've been fighting other battles. But, you know, to me, again, I think it was a setup. I think that there was some nefarious stuff that went on. It was obvious to me and a lot of other people. You can see a lot of the videos where they're like, hey, you know, that's a Fed, or this is that, or, you know, whatever. And it was so blatant to me while I was there, and I'm in the energy, you know what I mean? I'm in the energy of like, this is great, like everybody marching, and because it was so patriotic and so accurate to what I believe the founders said was stand up peacefully, gather together, make your voices heard, but don't hurt anybody, don't don't damage stuff, don't rob people, don't do all those things. And up until that point where things got kicked off, because that energy was peaked, it was so obvious to me that somebody else, they wanted that to happen, to put some sort of a black stain on Trump, on all of us that have supported Trump over the years, and it's failing. You know, they've got this sham J6 thing, you know, but there's people like you and people that are paying the price without due process, which is what our entire foundation is built on.
A lot of these guys, they have been denied due process. They are in this situation where they've been held in jail for over a year. You know, myself, you know, I can't complain that much if I'm being real honest. I mean, it's part of a process. I can understand if I violated a point of law. Obviously, I pled guilty, so I came to some sort of peace with that decision. But I think that's really what we got to do is get back to the Constitution, especially now in a situation where, you know, Trump got his stuff raided. But, you know, speak to what Americans need to do in a time where it's obviously that we're being provoked. And we're being agitated through the media and the same old things. They're going to lock down. Obviously, they're going after Trump, and they're trying to get people very angry. And how can Americans maintain that, but also take action and affect change?
Follow the rule of law. You know, we have to fall back on what our Constitution was built on over the last 240 plus years that we've been a country. Is you have to fall back against that rule of law. Sorry, I've got listening to see if is Lee up there.
I can't tell who it is.
Is it a blue jacket? Oh yeah, it's her.
Okay.
So I gotta go watch her. Yeah. But so what they need to do is fall back on the rule of law, follow it very, very tightly, and don't be provoked into anger, because that's what they're trying to get us to do. Right? Keep your hands down and keep your heads down, band together, do business with each other, right? Speak to each other, go on the channels where your voice is good, you know, and stick to each other, and they cannot overwhelm us.
Absolutely.
It's impossible.
And where can people find your work?
JasonSisneros.com, JasonSisneros.com, and then there's a bunch of stuff we do.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.